This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform. More about them later in this video. Welcome back to Biographics. I'm your host, Cosmic Horror Madman Eric Malachite, and today we're returning to ancient Greece to talk about Lysander, with a script by the ever-capable Radu Alexander. As always, be sure to check the links in the description, and without further delay, let's get to it. The Peloponnesian War from the second half of the 5th century BC was one of the most important events in the ancient world, as Sparta and Athens, alongside all their allies, fought fiercely to determine who would claim hegemony over the Greek world. Now, a while back, we already started taking a look at the war when we did our bio on Brasidas, one of Sparta's mightiest generals, and if you haven't seen it yet, maybe check it out now. It's hosted by my esteemed colleague, Karl Smallwood. However, in that video, we could not follow the war to its conclusion because neither did Brasidas, who died about a third of the way through. But now we are going to see it to the end because our subject for today is Lysander, the Spartan general who defeated Athens. Lysander was born circa 454 BC in Sparta. We don't know much about Lysander before he became a top dog in the military, and only the last decade or so of his life is properly documented. The most solid ancient source we have on him is Plutarch, who dedicated an entire chapter to Lysander in his magnum opus, Parallel Lives. However, as a small reminder, Plutarch lived almost 500 years after Lysander, so it's not like they were drinking buddies or anything like that. Taking Plutarch at his word, we can say that Lysander's father was Aristocleides, a man who claimed to be part of the Heraclid lineage, aka a descendant of Heracles or Hercules, depending on, whether you're Roman or Greek, I guess. Although not part of the royal family. In fact, Lysander grew up in poverty, although he bore it well, and even when he had power and influence, he did not exhibit a love for gold. Over to you, Plutarch. Lysander showed himself as much as any man conformable to the customs of his people, of a manly spirit too and superior to every pleasure, accepting only that which their good deeds bring to those who are successful and honored. Ambition, then, and the spirit of emulation were firmly implanted in him by his Laconian training, and no great fault should be found with his natural disposition on this account. But he seems to have been naturally subservient to men of power and influence beyond what was usual in a Spartan, and content to endure an arrogant authority for the sake of gaining his ends, a trait which some hold to be no small part of political ability. But what is most peculiar in him is that he was never mastered nor even corrupted by money, yet filled his country full of wealth, importing as he did an abundance of gold and silver after the war with Athens, although he kept not a single drachma for himself. That's pretty much all Plutarch gives us on Lysander before the latter became involved in the Peloponnesian War. But before we get to that, let's take a quick look at the state of the Greek world at that time. The first part of the conflict, sometimes referred to as the Archidamian War, after the Spartan king Archidamus II, ended in 421 BC, thanks mainly to the aforementioned Brasidas following his victory at the Battle of Amphipolis. Brasidas died in that battle, but so did the opposing general, Cleon. Since both Sparta and Athens lost their top military leaders, they decided to call a truce, even though everyone knew it wouldn't last long. In the years that followed, they continued fighting proxy wars through their Greek allies, and Sparta claimed another victory over Athens at the Battle of Mantinea. Then, in 415 BC, Athens decided to lead an expedition to Sicily and attack Syracuse, which was an ally of the Spartans. Sparta, Corinth, and a few others decided to intervene, and the subsequent conflict was a total disaster for Athens, which had its entire force either killed in battle or taken prisoner, including 3 of its generals, Lamachus, Nicias, and Demosthenes. Following this Athenian defeat, some of its allies decided that this was the time to abandon the ship and revolt against Athens. Like a shark that smelled blood in the water, Sparta felt that this was its golden opportunity to submit Athens once and for all, so it declared war in earnest. But then, something unexpected happened. Athens started winning, and at the Battle of Cyzicus, managed to destroy the entire Spartan fleet. This was in no small part thanks to an Athenian general named Alcibiades, who managed to keep his victory streak going and regain a lot of ground that Athens had lost during the war. All of a sudden, Sparta was on the back foot, so it turned for help to its most recent navarch, aka its fleet commander, Lysander. If you want to be able to crush your competitors like Lysander did Rome, you're gonna need an awesome website. And the sponsor for today's video, Squarespace, has you covered. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform perfect for entrepreneurs with wares to sell, bloggers with a message to spread, and artists looking to reach the masses with their work. Whether you're just starting out or you're looking for a way to better manage your brand, Squarespace makes it easier for you to create beautiful professional websites, engage with your audience, and make sure the right people are getting your message. Squarespace's Fluid Engine makes it easier than ever for pretty much anyone to dive in and make a beautiful website. Answer a few questions about the goals you'd like to accomplish with your site, choose a template, and get dragging and dropping elements onto your template. And drag and drop technology is included with every Squarespace site. With Squarespace Blueprint and their new AI and SEO tools, you'll be able to create a fully personalized website using this guided design system. Choose from a professionally curated list of layout and design options and build a unique presence from the ground up. And with their SEO tools, you'll have all the tools you need to get that pesky algorithm on your side. And best of all, if you are an entrepreneur with wares to sell on your website, you'll be able to offer a simple yet seamless checkout experience with Squarespace's powerful tools. You'll be able to accept credit cards, PayPal, Apple Pay, and in eligible countries, offer customers the option to buy now and pay later with Afterpay and ClearPay. Ready to get started? Check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/biographics to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Now, back to the video. Again, how exactly Lysander reached such a prominent position in such a short time remains a mystery. Surely, he must have already proven himself to be a capable fighter and a skilled commander without us knowing about it. But he also might have taken a shortcut by sleeping his way to the top, if you know what I mean. According to Plutarch, Lysander was the lover of Agesilaus, the half-brother of the Spartan king Agis II, who himself would become king in 400 BC and rule for 40 years during the peak of Spartan hegemony. Let us know if you'd like a video on him in the future as well. Back to Lysander. It seems that his first mission as a Spartan commander would test his charms more than his military prowess, because he was tasked with securing an alliance with the Persians, specifically with Cyrus the Younger, son of King Darius II. The Persians and Spartans weren't exactly on friendly terms. It had only been 70 years since the Greco-Persian Wars and the infamous Battle of Thermopylae, with the 300 Spartans led by King Leonidas. You know, they made a movie about it.
This is Sparta!
But at this moment, both sides disliked the Athenians more than each other. The Spartans because, well, they were at war with them, and the Persians because Athens posed a threat to their territories in Asia Minor, particularly Ionia. That's why King Darius named Cyrus the satrap of Lydia and tasked him with doing everything he could to weaken the Athenians. Lysander and Cyrus got on like a horse on fire because both men understood that a victory against Athens would serve their goals greatly. Cyrus knew that his father wasn't long for this world and that he needed allies for an inevitable power struggle between him and his brother, Artaxerxes II. Meanwhile, Lysander coveted the power and prestige that came with being the Spartan who finally crushed the Athenians. Cyrus had already agreed to fund the Spartan army, but Lysander managed to win the heart of the young prince by convincing Cyrus to give everyone raises of 1 obol to the pay of each sailor. Quite correctly, Lysander reasoned that this would cause a lot of desertions on the opposing side, with many sailors simply following the money. Athens tried to secure its own meeting with the Persians, but Cyrus refused to see the Athenian envoys. Clearly, he was placing all his eggs in Lysander's basket. Now Athens went into a bit of panic mode, and wanted to engage the Spartans as soon as possible. But even though Lysander had amassed a large fleet, roughly 90 ships compared to Alcibiades' 80, he was in no rush to fight. He knew that he was hurting Athens more by simply staying put at Ephesus on Persia's dime, while his enemy was forced to deal with decreasing funds and supplies, desertions, and low morale. Eventually, Alcibiades had no choice but to leave his port at Notion to tend to other matters. He left the bulk of his fleet behind, but made a very bizarre choice, one which is considered unique in the history of Athenian navy. He left a man named Antiochus in charge, who was a Kybenetes, aka a meager helmsman. Not a general or a captain, but a petty officer. To be fair to Alcibiades, he left very simple instructions. Do not attack Lysander. So what did Antiochus do? He attacked Lysander, and he lost badly. Not only was Antiochus killed in battle, but he took 22 of his own ships with him. By the time Alcibiades had returned with reinforcements, Lysander was already safely back in Ephesus with no desire to fight anymore. Two things happened after Lysander's victory at Notion. Alcibiades was blamed for the defeat and lost his position as fleet commander, and he went into exile rather than return to Athens. But surprisingly enough, Lysander lost his position as well. In this case, it wasn't a punishment, but rather an end of term, since, according to Spartan law, he could only serve as navarch for 1 year. So he was replaced with a guy named Callicratidas. And let's be honest, this stung Lysander. It became clear that Lysander didn't simply want Sparta to win, he wanted Lysander to win. Callicratidas riding his coattails to victory didn't comfort him one bit. So immediately, Lysander undermined his successor by returning to Cyrus all the money he had left over, thus forcing Callicratidas to make his own arrangements with the Persian prince. And Cyrus stayed loyal to Lysander, refusing to deal with Callicratidas and forcing the new navarch to fight the Athenians without Persian aid. Meanwhile, Lysander went around to his allies in the Aegean, drumming up support for himself. All he needed was to wait for Callicratidas to screw up, which he did at the Battle of Arginosai in 406 BC. It was a grand sight, described by Diodorus as the greatest naval battle in history of Greeks against Greeks. Each side deployed around 150 ships, but the Athenians won the day in magnificent fashion, destroying 77 Spartan ships while losing only a third of that. Callicratidas was killed in battle, so hopefully I'll never have to say that confusing word again. The Spartans offered a peace treaty, but the Athenians were feeling cocky and turned it down. Although many Sparta were wary of giving Lysander power again, they had no choice. His allies demanded it, chief among them, Cyrus. The law said that Lysander couldn't be navarch again, but even back then there were loopholes. A guy named Archos was appointed as the new navarch, while Lysander was his epistolius, or second in command, although everyone understood that Lysander was really the one calling the shots. After a few months of rebuilding his fleet, Lysander set off on the warpath, attacking several cities and islands allied with Athens. Chief among them was Lampsacus, a strategically important town at the mouth of the Hellespont, aka Dardanelles, which could impact Athens' grain shipments. This forced their hand and prompted an immediate response, and the two sides met in combat at the Battle of Aigos Potami in 405 BC. Ancient sources gave differing accounts on how the fighting went down, but they all had one victor, Lysander. It seems that after 4 days of stalemates, the Spartans managed to catch the Athenians unprepared and captured many of their ships unmanned. After 27 years, the Peloponnesian War was over, not officially yet, but once Athens had lost its fleet, it was merely a formality. Lysander laid siege to Athens, and with no grain shipments incoming, starvation forced their surrender in March 404 BC. Lysander did not forget his friends who put him in power. He went around the Aegean to former allies of Athens and replaced their democratic governments with groups of 10 oligarchs, known as dikarches. Meanwhile, Athens became ruled by 30 oligarchs, loyal to Sparta, known as the 30 Tyrants. But as they say, pride comes before the fall, and Lysander found out that he wasn't quite the ultimate conqueror he envisioned himself to be. First, the government of 30 tyrants that he installed in Athens only ruled for 8 months before being overthrown, and much to Lysander's chagrin, the Spartan king Pausanias agreed to restore the Athenian democracy. Furthermore, in 401 BC, the Spartans lent their support to Cyrus, who fought his brother to become the new king of the Achaemenid Empire. But they backed the wrong horse. Cyrus was killed in battle. Artaxerxes became the new ruler and now held a deep grudge against Sparta, and he wasn't the only one. Thebes and Corinth, once two powerful Spartan allies, were also on the outs with Sparta. According to Plutarch, Lysander actually encouraged war against Thebes, and he got his wish. In 395 BC, a new Greek coalition, which included Corinth, Thebes, Athens, and Argos, went to war against Sparta, and this time they were the ones being funded by the Persians. The opening battle of this new war was fought at Haliartus and ended in a Theban victory and the death of Lysander. The Spartan general made the mistake of bringing his troops too closely to the city walls, allowing the opposing army to suddenly open the gate and overwhelm the Spartans in a blitz attack, thus teaching Lysander a very important lesson. Be careful what you wish for. Well, I hope you found this video entertaining and educational, and if you did, be sure to do all that algorithmic jazz and keep it tuned here for more videos just like this. I'm Eric Malachite, and I'll see you next time, Space Cowboy.